Maharaj, Pranam Maharaj, this is Shubhada Chatterjee. I have a question for Maharaj.
Yeah.
Pranam Maharaj.
Yes, Pranam.
Maharaj, you just mentioned like religious is the crux of the nationalism. And these days, what I see like we have limited either religion to create partitions among people or just for mere practices of some rituals. So my question is like, how can we imbibe the true essence of religion in the upcoming generation, like the small kids and all? Like, what I see, most of the kids are quite ignorant about what our actual religion was and how the actual practices should be and what is the ideology. So, could you please kindly help me to understand, like, how can this be imbibed for small kids so that they can be the path holder for the next generation?
This is a very good and very relevant question, and this has been discussed many times. The thing is that you see, as I said, one of the main culprits for the present situation in which we have a great confusion about our own religion. The culprit behind this is the kind of education system which we have adopted. As I said in the beginning, that in India, in the past, before the English education system came into this country, everything in our day to day life was conducted in and through religion. In and through religion. That is a very important point. Now, the English race, they understood that this Hindu society is a great society. In fact, it is far advanced compared to any of the societies of the Europe. This the Europeans could understand when they came here. They were standing in front of a magnanimous society which was so advanced in several respects, not only in philosophy and spirituality, but even in their understanding of empirical matters, whether it is yoga, spirituality, philosophy, empirical sciences, Ayurveda, and whatnot. There is hardly any area of human engagement where these Hindus have not contributed. So they understood that if this group of people have to be ruled, we have to disconnect them from their roots, from their religious roots. It is their scientific religion which is making them so strong and so advanced. It is with this ploy, this was a ploy and it was a conspiracy. It was this intention that the English introduced the English education system in which there was no place for religion at all. And that is how slowly this Indians, over a period of time, generation after generation, they started going away from their own roots, which is religion itself. And today we have come to a state where Hindus themselves are absolutely ignorant about what Hinduism is. It is a very sad state of affairs. What you have said is very true. In our own houses, you will find Hindus, they don't have the idea about what actually Hinduism means. All that they understand is some rituals here and there. So now what is the solution for this? It is a very good thing. It is very promising that today we are discussing this matter. And as Swamiji said, mere discussion won't do. We have to take steps to ensure that we once again bring back this religion into our education system. Again, I've said, as in the beginning, this religion is not the religion of the Semitic type. It is not the blind, fanatic, dogmatic, exclusivistic kind of belief system. It is the science of life. That's why it is very different. This cannot be equated with the Semitic religions. Yes, the Semitic religions cannot be the core of India's national life, but the science of human life, which is the Hindu Sanatana Dharma, that should be the center of India's education, that should be the center of India's politics, that should be the center of India's social reform, that should be the center of everything that this country is involved with. Because that is the very science of life itself. Because there is nothing exclusivistic in that. That is the only system in which all the religions can remain and survive peacefully. That is the true secularism, so called, of the Hindu Sanatana Dharma. So we need to create an opinion among the people and slowly bring back this religious education. Again, religious education, I mean the scientific religion of the Vedas in which the whole stress is in the realization of the Atman. This Atman is kept at the center of the education. When this happens, then the true national awakening, the religious awakening will take place. And from that, a great India will be built up. So we need to once again bring back this science of life into our education system and enlighten our children. It is still a far away prospect, but we can expect that this may happen if we keep on creating this kind of an opinion, a strong opinion. A strong opinion then builds up, and with that, we can expect that in future, strong steps may be taken from the higher ups to introduce this kind of a religious education in our day to day life. Just imagine where the religion is the very soul of this country, that in that country we are not allowed to teach religion in our schools and colleges. What a pathetic state it is. Swami Vivekananda says that religion is the very soul of this country. And in that country, for ages where education has been essentially the scientific religious education, in that country today, we cannot talk about religion in our schools and colleges. Let us build up this opinion, and let us hope that in future a time will come when this will become a reality. The policies will have to be changed, and then we can move in this direction of once again bringing back the real vitality of this country back into our day-to-day life, domestic life.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Pranam Maharaj. Myself Niranjan. I have a question now, Maharaj. How can we as youth inculcate Sanatana Dharma in day-to-day life in the means of academics or in the means of personal life?
See, first of all, I would say the best thing is that you have to study Vivekananda. You study Vivekananda properly. So Vivekananda is the source and the means or the way to understand what Sanatana Dharma is. There is no better teacher than Vivekananda in our present times. And when you study Vivekananda, you will understand first of all what Sanatana Dharma is. You will understand what I am saying now, how it is different from the so-called exclusivistic, dogmatic, fanatic religions of the Middle East. In that sense, this Vaidika Sanatana Dharma is not a religion at all, it is science. So to understand the scientific nature of Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, you should study Vivekananda. You will understand this is the science of life itself. So when you understand that, then you will understand how to apply it in your academic and your day-to-day life. Just tell me which is that area where this Atman philosophy doesn't become applicable. The Atman philosophy is applicable to the entirety of the human life. It is not localized that you apply it in one area and not in the other area. When you are aware of your own Atman, then that Atman consciousness becomes manifested in whatever you are doing, whether it is your academic career, whether it is your profession, whether it is your family life, whether it is your relationships. Everything gets divinized. Everything is uplifted to a sublime level of divinity, and life itself will become blessed. So to bring this Atman factor in whatever we are doing, in whatever we are thinking, in whatever we are willing, that is the main, what should I say, the challenge that we have in front of it. And how to do that, you can get the hints from Swami Vivekananda. Read Vivekananda's lecture from Colombo to Almora. Read Vivekananda's practical Vedanta, where Swamiji talks about how to practically apply this Atman philosophy in one's day-to-day life, and how that can transform us from a very low level to a high level of character and possibility. I would request all of you to read, once again I'm telling, lectures from Colombo to Almora. Read it 100 times. This is the one book which can transform India even today. Today, I feel so urgent the need to introduce this lecture from Colombo to Almora in our schools and colleges. Every single talk is an explosion which can completely revolutionize this country. Even now, it had revolutionized India in the 20th century during the freedom movement time. That is what I said. What does this book contain? It contains nothing but the glory of Hindu Sanatana Dharma. And when that was touched upon, the true nationalistic spirit was awakened. That is how the freedom movement was actually, it got its strength. It derived all its strength from the awakening of the religious consciousness, from the awakening of the religious pride, from the awakening of that pride and the glory of Hindu Sanatana Dharma. It is from there that the freedom fighters drew all that energy. Then they had Gita in their hands, Upanishads in their hands, and Swamiji's books in their hands. Again, I am showing the connection between religion and Bharat. They are inseparable. There is no Bharat without religion. And this religion, what I mean is the Hindu Vaidika Sanatana Dharma. So please read Lectures from Colombo to Almora. That is the one book which should be immediately introduced in our education system. All the children above the age of, say, 10 or 12 should begin to read this book.
Knowingly or unknowingly, they have stumbled upon this suggestion, Maharaj. From 2 days onwards, they have started reading Colombo to Almora. Any other questions?
Pranam Maharaj, I am Anirudh. I have a small doubt on the lecture you have given now. Considering the fact that India is welcoming to other countries, won't other countries take our country as granted?
Wonderful question. See, I have been given just 60 minutes to talk about this subject. In fact, there are many topics within these topics, and each topic can be discussed separately. So, it was not possible for me to shed light on all these areas. So, when we talk about India being welcoming, we should understand one thing. What you said is a very practical point. Yes, India is welcoming. India has always sheltered the persecuted, the refugees of all the countries and of all the religions in this country for ages. It has been happening. But that doesn't mean that India will keep quiet if it is attacked today. If Bharat is attacked by anybody, Bharat will pay that nation in its own coin. Unmistakably, Bharat will fight tooth and nail. But that doesn't mean that Bharat has got hatred for anybody. This fight of the Bharat is purely in defense. This is the one great characteristic of this country. Whenever our people, the great freedom fighters, let us go back to Chhatrapati Shivaji, Rana Pratap, Prithviraj Chauhan, Rani of Jhansi, all of them, they all fought in defense. They were never offensive for the sake of becoming offensive. That is the ideology of Bharat. That is the beauty of Bharat. Yes, if anybody points their finger towards Bharat, Bharat will pay back to that nation in its own coin, in its own language, and Bharat should do that. But that doesn't mean that Bharat has got any intrinsic hatred for anybody. If this is the philosophy of Bharat, that we stand in defense of our country, and it is only in defense that we raise our arms. Otherwise, in our intrinsic philosophy is that we look upon everybody as one family. If this ideology, just imagine, if this ideology is adopted by all the nations of the world, if they give up their selfish, greed-centered, arrogant kind of nationalism which constantly eyes on the wealth and resources of other countries, if they give up that kind of nationalism, where will be the need for any fight or wars? All that Western nationalism results in the amassing of arms and ammunitions, and it is the other name of aggrandizing the military enterprises. Is it not? Just imagine, because of that kind of a negative nationalism of this Western kind, where we love our country by hating others, we are investing billions and billions of dollars in arms and ammunition. Just imagine if they change their ideology and adopt the Indian way of nationalism, where we don't harbor any hatred for anybody, where we don't eye upon the other nation's resources and land, where we believe that all the nations are like we are one brotherhood, living like one family. Will there be need for the nations to invest billions and billions of dollars in military affairs? That money can go in solving the problems of poverty and backwardness, not only in their nation, but on the entire planet itself. It is this India's ideology of nationalism which is a stepping stone towards internationalism, which alone can save this nation. The world has to learn this nationalistic lesson from India. So, as you said, yes, India is welcoming to all, but that doesn't mean that India is going to keep quiet if anybody attacks this country. India will fight tooth and nail back. It will give that nation back in its own coin, but that is only in defense. Otherwise, India's policy is never to transgress the limits of its boundaries. This India has showed this in the entire history, in her historical existence. This is the one nation which has never transgressed the geographical bounds of her country. It has never slit the throats of its neighbors. It has never persecuted anybody. It has never shed rivers of blood, which every other nation has done. Holocaust, genocide, persecution, inquisition, and what not. All barbarous things happening. And interestingly, history describes those people as great. I still wonder why people call Alexander the Great. What is great about it? Somebody goes around the world, plundering the world, killing, massacring, committing genocide, killing, murdering, raping, persecuting everybody, and just because of his military power, history depicts that person as great. What is true greatness? That greatness has to be learned from the Indian personalities like Buddha, like Shankara, like Vivekananda, a life given to self-sacrifice, a life where the person teaches the entire humanity the lessons of love, the lessons of peace, the lessons of spiritual enlightenment. Anyway, that's a different subject altogether. So the answer to your question is definitely India is welcoming, but that doesn't mean that if anybody comes to us with some bad intentions to do some harm to us, India will pay back that country in its own language, in its own coin. Otherwise, intrinsically, India has never harbored hatred for anybody in this planet. This is the nationalism which world has to learn from India, and India alone. Swamiji says India is destined to give these lessons to the world. The very existence of India is meant for this purpose. No other country can do this. That is the glory of Bharat, and that comes from its religion. Again, let me come back to the same point. India's nationhood lies in religion. India's nationalism lies in its religion, the religion of the Vedic Sanatana Dharma. Let our policymakers listen to this fact. Let them ponder over it. Let the whole country think about it, and we have to go back to our roots.
Yes. Thank you, Swamiji. Any more questions? Swamiji, our time is up. We shall conclude the session with a small, a formal vote of thanks, in short, through offering the pranams. But before that, definitely some of the conclusions what you have made, that is really making us think, because the terms like secularism, such words, has created all of us in great spin. As you rightly said, the solution is very close to us, Vivekananda. It's a high time that we should study Vivekananda. Definitely, I am sure our students, though they are in the institution, but still they have not realized this truth, I should admit. But today we have thrown a special emphasis and light on the ideas of Swami Vivekananda by referring his book. Definitely, I am sure many of our students, they open their eyes and start reading Swami Vivekananda's literature, Swamiji. And I am sure also many of the viewers who are viewing through YouTube, they have also enjoyed, and I hope this lecture has been an eye-opener for them in this pandemic situation. I offer my pranams personally and on behalf of our Mandiram students, Swamiji. I request our inmate Aniruddha to conclude the program.
I thank you, Maharaj, on behalf of all the viewers, and we are blessed with the shower of your thoughts. And I would conclude the talk with the small prayer.
पुण्डरीकाक्षः सर्वयज्ञेश्वरो हरि तस्मिन् तुष्टे जगत्तुष्टं प्रणीते प्रणीतं जगत् हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।